said that I have this little clothing line, Almighty One Athletics, and when I started, I thought that's all it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a clothing line. I was going to hide in my parents' basement and ship some clothes out, and everything was going to be all good. I didn't have to ever go out of my comfort zone. But somewhere along those lines, I got asked to speak to a couple of different Bible study groups, which led into some business meetings and volunteer events, and now graduation ceremonies. I just did a DARE graduation, and now I'm here. And when I started speaking, I would never practice, not once. I thought it would make me more nervous, and it always did, and I gave up on it and just went in there, winged it, just told my story, and it was all good to go. But today I felt like I had to practice for some reason. So I went into my kitchen and set this laptop up and started speaking, set the chairs up and pretended they were people. And of course, right when I started practicing, I got nervous. And then right out of the corner of my eye, I saw something fly up to the window, and it was a cardinal. So I think that was God's sign of telling me that it's going to be okay, and these new Bremen Cardinals need to hear what you have to say today. So I believe I speak for everyone in this room when saying that we're all proud of you guys and your accomplishments in your lives thus far, from learning to walk to now walking at your graduation and everything between. I stand before a group of people that are ready to go out and find out who they really are. It's time to take a leap. It's time to take everything you've learned the past 17 to 18 years and go and set sail in your own ship. It's time to be more independent than you ever have before. It's time to bust out of the bubble and meet new people. But hopefully it's not time to gain that freshman 15. But it might be time to generate an addiction to coffee. So if anybody really knows me, they know I absolutely love coffee. It's almost like dangerous. I think I could kill a lion, a zebra, 2 small dogs, and like a hamster with how much coffee I drink. But I'm not here to encourage you guys to start drinking coffee, but I want to talk about coffee's greatest compliment, which is its mug. Now with coffee, I also have a fair collection of mugs, and whenever I come home with a new one, my mom is like, "Really, Lauren, another mug?" And I say, "Yeah, Mom, it's another mug, but this one's different than all the other mugs I have. It's better and crafted in its own unique way." But the one thing that people don't pay attention to with mugs is how they became one. So I want to tell you guys this process from the perspective of a mug. The mug says, "Once upon a time, I was smooth clay, until my master took me and rolled me and flattened me out. I said, 'Hey, leave me alone,' but he wouldn't listen. Then he placed me on a wheel, and suddenly I started spinning around and around and around. And I said, 'Stop it, I'm gonna barf.' And I yelled, but the master shook his finger and said, 'Not yet.' After the wheel of death, he placed me in an oven. I never felt such heat, it burned. And I knocked on the door and screamed, 'Let me out!' I could see him through the opening, but I could read his lips saying, 'Not yet.' Finally, he did listen to me, took me out, about time. He set me on a rack where I began to cool, much better. But before I knew it, he grabbed me and brushed me and pinned me all over. The smell was horrible, and I thought I was going to pass out. 'That's enough, stop it right now,' I said, but he only shook his finger. 'Not yet.' Then suddenly he threw me back into the oven. This time it was twice as hot. And I begged and I pleaded and I screamed and I cried. And he stood outside the oven, only shaking his finger. 'Not yet.' How could he do this to me? Can he hear me? This is where I lost hope. I would never make it. I was ready to give up. And then, finally, the oven door opened and he took me out and placed me on a shelf, this time for good. He placed a mirror in front of me, and I couldn't believe what I saw. It was me, staring back at myself, and I was more beautiful than I could ever imagine. The master explained, "I know you didn't want to be rolled and flattened, but if I had left you as smooth clay, you would have dried up. I know it sucked when you spun around on that wheel and thought you were going to throw up, but if I would have took you off, you would have crumbled. And I know it burned in that oven, but if I hadn't placed you in there, you would have cracked. And those fumes, I know they were bad, but if I hadn't brushed you, you wouldn't have color. And if I hadn't put you back into the oven the second time, you wouldn't last because the hardness would not have held. Now you are a finished product. You're what I had imagined for you to look like when I first began creating you. You'll bring happiness, you'll change the world, and you'll be more confident than you ever were because you were formed by a product of the Most High. Ladies and gentlemen, if the pain hasn't come yet, it will. If you haven't failed yet, you will. And I know that may not sound inspiring, but it is the truth. It might seem discouraging, but if you ask any successful person that you look up to, they'll probably tell you how many times they failed to get where they are today. Thomas Edison. Whenever I hear this name in the back of my mind, this little voice is saying, he failed 1,000 times before creating a successful light bulb. But 1,000 times, like, step into this situation yourself. How many of you can honestly say you wouldn't give up through something, through 1,000 failures? And I'm not talking about the failures, diet starts Monday. I'm talking about the failures that you pour your heart and soul into and come up short. So Thomas Edison is known as America's greatest inventor. And many of us know him just as the guy that created the light bulb. But what really interests me is where he started. Do you want to know what his first job was? He sold candy and newspapers on a train. He sold these candy and newspapers, but guess what? He also had a chemical lab set up in one of the boxcars because he had a passion he had to fill. So he worked during the day and fueled his passion at night. And while working on the trains, he eventually got into this situation where there was a runaway car and he saved a 3-year-old boy from getting hit. And it turned out that this boy was the station agent's son. And he was so grateful that Edison saved his child that this station agent gave him the job of telegraph operator. You can imagine what kind of a step up that was from selling candy and newspapers. But eventually he got a new job and he moved away. And this time he requested night shifts so he could still work on the experiments and read during the day. So one night, Edison was working with lead acid, and it spilled onto the floor through the cracks, through the floorboards, and landed right on top of his boss's desk. What are the odds of that? Next morning he was fired, and his life was over, right? Not yet. This tragedy actually led him into a man who would eventually be Edison's mentor. He let him live and work in his house, and he could finally do what he was born to do, invent. He could fuel his passions finally all the time. So Thomas started with many inventions, which eventually led to the light bulb and led to many more after that. And those 1,000 failed attempts for the light bulb didn't seem like much compared to the 1,093 patents and endless awards that he achieved in his lifetime. And none of us here would be able to have Edison's creations if he would have given up on the 999th try. So what does this all mean? How can I be like Edison? Sell candies and newspapers. Not literally, but start with something. My candy and newspapers came in the form of sweet corn. In 5th grade, I had my best friend call me on the phone, and she said, "Hey, Lauren, you never believe this. My grandpa gave us sweet corn, and we can sell it and make a profit." And I said, "Sweet, let's do it." So I biked over to her house, and we loaded this wheelbarrow up full of sweet corn. It was very hot that day, and he said that we could sell it for 25 cents an ear. I was thinking about upping the price, but you gotta honor the grandpa, so sold it for that. Loaded it up, and I'm not kidding, I could have fit inside of this wheelbarrow, so you can imagine how heavy that was for a little 5th grade girl to wheel this thing around town, door to door, trying to sell corn for 25 cents an ear. There were many doors that were unanswered. We even had a couple no's and slammed the doors in our face. But we did sell some corn, and we were really excited to go back home and count up all the profits. So when the deal was with her grandpa that we had to give him half the profits back. So that was okay until we realized that we had to split those profits in half between me and my friend. So if you can do math, it comes out to about 6 cents an ear that we were making. And I only ended up with about $2 to $3 that day and blisters on my hands to show. But for some reason, that $2 or $3 felt like a lot more. It was something. It was better than nothing. And something is everything. And everything is your legacy. And your legacy is every person that you touch. People come to me now and say, "You're the almighty one, girl. You got your whole life together. I want to be like you." But no one really knows all the tough jobs and failures I had along the way. I'm seeing a girl that I worked at Bud's Pizza with in the front row over there. But I wouldn't trade these failures for the world. And the funny thing is that I really don't know where I'll be a year from now. And But all I do know is that if I do fail, it's going to lead me to the right direction and the next right thing. Going to college, I thought the degree I chose was going to be my whole life career. Everything was going to be that. But we all learn as we go, and we learn from experiences and failures. And I always find every time I try to plan, God takes me in a completely different direction anyway. You might get fired or thrown in an oven, and it may seem like the end of the world, but it's really forming you into something more beautiful. You'll be pressed, molded, and rolled out so that you can be made into a masterpiece. Another tip, be kind. Don't let somebody else get hit by a train. Help others. It's what we're meant to do on this earth, and everything comes back around. The universe is all connected and no good deeds go to waste. The reading in Ecclesiastes, it said, "What do workers gain from their toil?" Man, God, I'm only making 6 cents a year and I'm still doing this. What is up with this? But it says, "I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race." And burdens have a reason. They might come in the worst times, but they're the things that help us turn into who we need to be. Because it says He's made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Look back at your life. Look at all the things God brought you through. He brought you in this room today, and He was with us through it all. Beginning and ending, He makes everything beautiful in time. God can dream a bigger dream than you can for yourself. I asked God to give me a job that I loved, and He gave me a clothing line. But there was more to His dream. He brought me to so many people's lives, and He brought me, a Minster girl, into new Bremen schools to help and encourage the next generation. And He has a whole lot more in store for me that I can't even imagine. I'm just excited to say yes to the opportunities that He gives me. So we all want God to work in our lives, but you have to work for Him first. You have to make it easy for God to work with you. Don't ask for help and then go and lay in your bed and watch Netflix and eat Cheetos. Get out there and make a positive impact on the world. Do something. Do something for the one person that needs you. Because something is everything, and everything is your legacy. And your legacy is every single person that you touch. I can't wait to see where you guys go and who you all touch out there, and I hope you all follow your passions because it'll lead you to the best life you'll ever live. Thanks for having me here, and congratulations, you guys.